open the meeting. Second.
You're making that motion.
I made that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then I'd like to make a motion to go to executive session.
And the attorney to the town and the town prosecutor.
Sure, that sounds good.
And I'll not.
Oh, and I'm excuse the town clerk, Don Marie Kramer.
6:32. And you're moving that, Leo. And is there a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
propose that we come out of executive session.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. I propose we come out of executive session.
I'll second.
7:09. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I would move that we start the meeting, the public meeting.
So returning to our meeting, Leo, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Does that mean call it open? Very good. Okay, so we'll start with pledge of allegiance, as we always do. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Emergency exits for those of you who aren't frequent flyers are the door you came in and this door over here. Dawn, roll call, please.
Supervisor Blackburn?
Here.
Council members Regular?
Here.
Mia?
Here.
Favor? Here.
Then I make a motion that we accept the agenda as printed.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And that was pretty easy. So, public comment, I just want to clarify, we always do it this way, but some of you may not have been here recently. We do public comment next on agenda items, and then we have public comment on anything you want to talk about later in the meeting after the resolutions are complete. And it's 3 minutes per person for each of those things, and the way that I've been doing it is just to have people raise their hands, and I just acknowledge them, and you go up to the podium and say your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, and we sort of move ahead with that. So just so everyone knows that that's the way we've been doing it, as long as I've been supervisor. Okay, so are there public comments that are on agenda items? Sharon, I hope you wanted to be number 4.
That's a different,
Oh, okay, okay.
that's later.
All right, great.
This is the agenda that you're speaking to right now. Sharon Kroger here. I see that you're going to approve a closure of Wassaic Main Street. It's particularly important that when you do that, you be conscientious about letting the deliveries and the people that have to get in and out of the businesses that are open be able to do it. I'd be curious what the hours are. My pandemic hours remain the same, 2:30 to 6, and I would normally be open at that time. So it's,
And the bakery is earlier than that, obviously, so that end of the street, it sounds like needs to be left open.
it says from 10 to 2, 10 to 12.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, thank you.
But we should probably let the bakery aware. Okay. All right. Any other public comments on the agenda items? Okay, well then, that was quick. I will do the supervisor's report. It's a quick one this time. Everyone will be greatly relieved. There is a meeting tomorrow with CPL, the architects or engineers for the highway garage. And we're going to be talking to them about the design development set which they've completed before going on to making comments before they go on to the construction documents, which is great that they're on schedule. We also have to look at, we're going to talk about the estimated costs for the highway garage. I had a meeting this morning with the New York State DOT, with Labella, who are the engineers, and with the Southern Industries, who are the contractors, who are who wanted to start tomorrow. But there's some administrative stuff that has to happen first. They think that they're going to be done in a week and a half to 2. That would be lovely, but we'll see if that happens. And anyway, it's going to start the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So hopefully we'll have a sidewalk there fairly soon. The town web, the designers of the website are still entering content onto the site, but I hope that they are far enough along or finished so everyone here can see it. The LED sign, we selected a bidder at the last meeting, and we're waiting for a fabrication and installation schedule from them. The farmer's market, we've been back working with NECC, but the trouble is, especially this late in the year, is getting vendors. But they and we are working on that and talking to local people, and we have had some positive replies. Main Street, this morning at the kickoff meeting for the sidewalk, I cornered the New York State DOT head Bill LaRose about the procedure to get approval for streetscape work. And he said that they prefer to receive all requests in a single application, so we will need a landscape architect to prepare a plan. That's got a lot of other moving parts, but the grant writer feels like there's money to subsidize that cost, if we decide to do that. We've had 8 replies to an ad for a part-time code enforcement officer, which is certainly exciting. I started calling candidates yesterday, and the ones who I thought were the 3 most promising were all interested. All of them had, objections to salary or hours or something, but it was a kind of much more encouraging crop than we've had before. The last thing is, in terms of public space, I've had a lot of phone calls this week trying to move ahead with Fountain Square and with the center of Passaic. We're trying to get those off the ground, but there are a number of steps to make those happen. Okay, that's me.
Yeah,
All
please.
right, so good evening, everyone. The prior meeting minutes for our May 1st meeting have been circulated. Are you guys ready to move on those?
Yes.
Great. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion with the minutes.
I'll second.
Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Also presenting this evening for the abstract dated this date and looking for authorization for our supervisor to pay claims as follows. General Fund A, $178,433.15. Highway Fund, $17,013.06. Armenia Lighting, $1,244.64. Wasatch Lighting, $471.13. Community Water, $18,263.46. Water District Capital Project, $16,787.39. And for our Highway Garage Capital Project, $53,167.53. And again, to reiterate, we're seeking for a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay claims in that format. Brad? All in favor?
Thanks, everybody.
I'm looking at you. Thank you for that. So I do have fun stuff. I did ask Erica to put together a quick status report on how we're doing with minutes, and then they're posted on the website. We did have a individual come in and they were looking for some minutes. So our website is current based off of what we had, so I do have a list that I will distribute to the board showing the last date of minutes that we have in our possession. So for each of the committees, so that way you guys know that they're coming, and if you guys can just continue to work on that.
You're not saying that each of the committees is current, you're saying that the list is current.
The list is current, and then it shows you that what dates the last set of minutes that I have. So some of them are back a little bit. Just so that way it's out there and the dates will be there and you guys can review that with them.
Okay.
For our tax collection, collected to date, $8,161,827.41. Penalties, $19,927.19, with the remaining uncollected for this tax season, $846,473.46. And if that kind of breaks down as totals, 1,942 have paid with 89 unpaid. Another reminder notice did go out in today's mail, so if you get the yellow copy of that tax bill, that is your final notice that you will receive from the town of Menia. After May 31st, they will be remitted to the county commissioner of finance. Collected for the month of April, in the town clerk's office, $419.50, remitted to the supervisor, $399.50. And then everything else I have, we have as agenda items. So that will conclude the town clerk's report.
Great. Do we have a building department report that we need to,
So in
Water.
our packets tonight, I will acknowledge receipt and circulation
okay?
of our building department report for the month of April totaling $5,894 even. We also have in here our water system operation report, our animal control report. That's all for reports.
Okay, those are pretty good. I'm wondering if someone wants, from the water committee would like to say anything, or I guess highway Megan is not here, so we're not doing that. Are there any?
Wait,
What?
Bill,
Oh, Bill, okay, good.
So, Bill Flood, Chairman of the Water Committee. So, just a quick update. We're in pretty good shape. We have an issue on 44, which VRI's been working on for a couple of days, with a new building at Four Brothers remodel. We can't seem to find the water line. Mainly the water shut off. So we're coming in, I think next week, we'll start looking a little bit hard to and see what we can do. We've also, since the new committee and VRI, which I think everybody should give them some applause for what they've done for us, we've put almost $200,000 in the bank so far in the past 6 months.
I know, it's amazing having knowledgeable and honest
They've done a solid job for us. And I think Charlie gave a report on other water stuff that's being done. I can't give you that. I think one other thing that we're going to discuss at our meeting in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a meeting is expanding the water district. You're going to have to start thinking about that as the meeting starts to grow. Other parts of the area plan to have water that we need, or will need, so that's a discussion we're going to have at some point. So other than that, that's it, that's my report.
Yeah.
Charlie gave you an update on the wells.
Yeah, so we distributed the engineering designs for Lavelle Road, so I'll quickly go over that. The first project that's going to be tackled under the engineering report is replacement of the Lavelle Road pump house. It's falling apart. John Andrews, the town engineer, I don't know, maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, put together some preliminary designs for that. So the engineers working with GRI and the supervisor have come up with a really great plan. It will also reorient where the building is. One of the wells is currently inside the current pump house building that's outside the code. So both wells will stay where they are, but the building will be put back in between them versus over one of them. And wells 4 and 4A, which are at Lavelle, their wellheads will be raised. So the plans are now with Dutchess County Department of Health, which is the regulatory body that oversees that, and hopefully we will get comments back from them within the next month or 2. And once the engineer feels comfortable that the design meets the health department's requirements, then they will put together a bid package that can be approved, and then we can have the town board ultimately authorize bidding that project out. And that will probably be, I would say, at the end of the summer, with an award maybe 30 or 45 days after that.
And they're using a pre-packaged, that's not the right word, but they're using a building that is inexpensive because it's.
It's prepackaged. Yeah, it's a prefab house. And what's interesting is that much like doing a prefab, you go to, these manufacturers and they have set sizes and you can make it, a little longer, you can make it a little wider. So it's pretty straightforward. Those manufacturers also manufacture and install where all of the piping is inside of this structure. The engineers have included filtration. Our current pump house doesn't have filtration.
mainly because those two wells are considered to be groundwater in the direct influence of surface water, so therefore those filters will filter out microparticulates and stuff like that. Is there anything else for today? Oh, the engineer is also applying for, so we currently have an application with the intended use plan, which the state revolving fund, that's where you submit all of your drinking water and wastewater projects too, and that's the way you get grant funding for them, and also if you wanted to get financing through EFC at the state level. So that application is due May 30th, and we're now working to apply for that. We have an application for Dutchess Crane Development Block Grant for $200,000, which we should hear about soon. And the supervisor has reached out to all of our elected officials to try to get additional funding for it. Unfortunately, at the federal level, all of those member line items seem to have been crossed out. So,
Yeah, it's really annoying having something shovel ready, and now we have money to do it. Okay, yeah.
were there any questions about the? Thank you.
Okay, any other committee reports or board reports? Sure.
I only want to state about the swimming pool that it has been going gangbusters, but they have a maintenance issue that the pool's been closed since Monday. So I'm waiting to hear, hopefully it will be open for the weekend, that's the last word I heard. But I just wanted to let people know because 2 people showed up on Monday, of course, that for the first time. So I want everybody to know that it is going to restart. It's just not quite restarted yet, that's all.
Great, thank you.
So for the housing board, I apologize that I wasn't here when the town board discussed the 3 affordable housing tax exemptions that the housing board had recommended. So I kind of wanted to ask if there were any questions. We noticed that there's nothing on this agenda regarding it. But were there any open items or items that?
I think,
So
we-
to
yeah,
clarify, we had recommended these are all exemptions provided through the state that local towns can opt into and ultimately create a local law for. So the first was for volunteer firefighters and EMS work or ambulance individuals. The second was for ADUs that are occupied by a parent or a grandparent. And the third was an ADU that is just created by a homeowner.
okay. Did people have questions on that, or?
I thought it was on our last agenda and it was taken out at the request of the housing.
Yes, that's true, it was taken off the last agenda because of the request of housing, so I was a little surprised that it was.
Yeah,
that you were-
Phantom housing person here.
I don't really have questions, but I did talk to Donna, the assessor, about this, and she had some questions.
I've spoken to Donna multiple times, and she didn't really have, her response was it's the town board who creates the local law, and she processes applications for a tax exemption.
Right, and she said that and a couple of other things, but I just felt to be proactive about this, when we discussed it, she might be, involved.
And she has been from the start,
in a meeting.
truthfully.
We did certainly invite her to the meeting,
Yeah.
and we,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I think that there might have been some questions too about how these exemptions work. So ultimately, so for all 3, it's a state form. So a taxpayer fills out this form and submits it to the assessor, and the assessor confirms their eligibility. So for the 2 ADUs, those are very straightforward. For the volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers, the assessor would send a list of those individuals to the respective fire company, for the fire company to confirm the eligibility of that member. And then it would come back to them. Nothing else? Okay. So we just want to reiterate that we feel it's a really important element. Definitely the ADU one is sort of required by our pro housing certification. So And there's some time. This wouldn't ultimately go into effect until next year, so they get that.
I mean, the reason that this is important is encouragement of people building ADUs, which means that they would be converting a part of their house for a parent or grandparent, which is pretty typical, mother-in-law, is not what's called apartment, of which there are many, or a garage, or building a small building for an accessory dwelling unit, which is allowed by our town code since 2007, not in suburban residential, but in every other district, that's allowed as a right. And the idea of an ADU is that it's often called the most gentle of workforce housing options because it doesn't really change the look of anything. Of course, to build one, you need to have enough septic capacity on your property to accommodate that. But again, if someone is, well, whatever. I mean, anyway, the point is that there isn't any state money, or there's supposed to be state money now, but there hasn't been any money to encourage people to do this. And it's kind of a leap for people because obviously they have to do construction, which means they have to involve contractor and potentially architect and all that stuff. So this would give people some benefit for putting out the money that it would require to do that.
Charlie, isn't, you know the numbers, it's a different benefit for people that are doing it for just a rental or an in-law, correct? Like a family, it's a family benefit is different than the renter benefit for an EDU?
Yes, the amount is different, yes. And there is a sunset for a homeowner who's creating an ADU for just a renter, which is 8 years, so it ticks down after 8 years, and it's capped at $80,000, right? Yeah. And then the one for the grandparent, for the parent, it goes on, I mean, you have to reapply every year, but it would go on until they are no longer there, yeah. And it has to be the person's primary residence, so the homeowner applied for this, it has to be their primary residence, and that goes for all three of the exemptions that we're suggesting, so for the firefighter, and both ADUs.
Okay.
But we would ultimately recommend that the town board pass this and then strongly encourage the school board to also adopt this, because especially for the firefighters and the ambulance workers, that would really be the big kick for them, would be incentives.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, unless there's any other committee reports, we move into discussion.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Out of here. Who's on? Charles?
Oh, sorry.
Bill Flood, Chairman of the Comp Plan Review, and starting June 9th is our first public meeting. So the community workshop on June 9th starts at 6 o'clock. All of the signs will be here on Tuesday, so they'll be going up Tuesday afternoon. You can also go on the town website, and the website that's our site is engagingmedia/shape your community. That's already up. We've gone with it. So please go there and show up for this meeting. So all your grievances, all your good things you want to say about the town, whatever else you want to say about the town, please bring it up at these meetings so we can get this stuff done.
Great.
Okay? Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you. The 2007 comprehensive plan was a very long process, and this is an update, so it's just trying to try to fill in the things that have changed since 2007. But it's still, I mean, it still will have public outreach, so people can comment on what they think is important. Okay, the EV charging station, do you have anything to say, Ian, or Charlie? I know has been managing the grant. Do you have stuff to tell us that's changed?
Nothing has changed on mine. I'm still waiting for the comments on the plan that I had circulated before. I have no comments. So that needs to be,
Reading the comments from the board, you mean?
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yes, I've heard nothing since.
I can quickly just, it was a management plan that Ian put together, which I think is really good and it satisfies everything that's necessary for the grant that they require. And today, I sent to Ian and Leah, it was only like maybe 20 minutes before this meeting, the updated quote from LilyPad, which is the vendor for the EV charging stations. And they provide the electricity and do all of that installation. They are on state contract, Sourcewell, so maybe at the next board meeting, the board can approve the purchase of that. That portion can be forwarded.
Yeah, I think Ian just was waiting to get the
That,
prices and
Yeah,
stuff.
and I will say that the price, oddly enough, did not increase more than like $1,000 or something. It was very close to what it was.
You mean from when the grant was written? Or when the
Yes,
grant was
yes,
applied?
and there's two parts of the cost. One is this, and the other is some local stuff. In order to-
Alrighty, I sent out I didn't send out, I handed you all a Main Street, a letter to Main Street merchants and owners about the parking situation. I don't, since I just handed it to you, 20 minutes ago, I don't expect you to necessarily have comments yet, but if you would, send them in, and I will incorporate them. I mean, I incorporated what I've gotten previously, but, if there's anything else, let me know, and then I'll send it out this week.
You want me just to write it on here, or you want me to,
Either way is fine, you can even speak it out if you want.
I can speak?
Yeah, of course. We try to stop.
My
it.
concern is that the one about the, using the town parking lot. So my question is, it says, behind the building where that's available in the town parking lot for long-term use, like all day or all night. So my question is, if we have events for the town hall, then would it be, I mean, at the town hall parking lot,
Mhm.
and 11 of those spaces belong to Stone Inc. And
Not into the
so,
evening, though.
excuse me?
Not into the evening. I think they only have it till 5, if I remember, it says on
Okay.
their signs.
But my question is, when we have things like, the night we have, not that it's going to take effect right away, but, like June 9th, if we have big events here, we're going to need parking, or if we have, concerts and all that kind of thing. So I'm a little bit concerned about the long-term parking.
Okay, that can be rewritten. I think the issue there was actually more about daytime parking in front of the stores. So I will reword that then, so it makes that clear. Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, just send me the comments if you're not ready now. Okay, next is to talk about the local law regulating food trucks and to discuss when we look to set a hearing date for that. I have a few questions on the draft. Get it here. I'm a little concerned that, like, what we discussed with the cannabis, that we're starting from, not from where we actually want food trucks to be, but, where we don't want them to be. And I'm concerned about a number of things. The first is that it seems to me the logical place that you would want food trucks right now would be the town hall parking lot in Beacon Hall, and it says specifically they're only allowed on private property, so I think we have to reword that.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I have questions about that particular thing.
Yep.
It should be rewritten a little bit more accurately.
Okay.
There's exceptions for specific events, for example, but there are exceptions specifically for that.
But it's not in this. It's not stated. I mean, it just needs to be really clear, because frankly, I think we'd rather have them at events there than on someone's front lawn. I mean, I didn't really understand how that was supposed to work. I mean, you said did that come from the Red Hook one? Because it just seems strange to kind of suggest that it primarily be on private property.
I don't think it's just it's primarily on private property.
The exception 6, there's 3 exceptions. One specifically is about having it on town
Okay.
property,
Oh, yeah,
special
okay.
events and for so
Okay,
for everything that we talk about having it for like the music series, those are all exceptions. But you also have, I mean, there's food trucks for like parties and events, and there's people who actually set up food trucks and have like
Right, I
designated
mean, I
locations.
had my wedding at my house. It would have been nice for me to have food trucks there. So that's, I think, the intent of the private property.
Okay, okay.
And in the town code, there are setbacks to that they have to follow to our post, and
So,
that's what Nate's talking about with the information, it's not just the town code.
okay. I just want to make sure we weren't excluding someplace that we already expected that we would
I
have.
wanted to make sure that there was no specific zoning area that we wanted to exclude.
Okay? And are you comfortable with that? I mean, in terms of, because it could be on people's private, it could be on people's lawns, in other words. You know, someone's having a wedding or whatever.
I mean, as long as the whole board's okay with that, I mean,
Yeah, I'll go through
it's.
that
I mean, if you
again.
think of a situation now, okay, and I
Well,
can't.
It's somebody calling to have it on their property, so it's, the food truck's gonna be at their property for their event.
And the other thing is,
Unless-
we're gonna get an application, we're gonna know
Yeah.
when this is happening. That was the other thing I wanted to mention is was the fees were suggested in the application I sent. I don't know if you noticed them at the bottom.
I did.
How do you feel about those?
I didn't have a problem with that. What I was worried about was collections, since we have such a terrible time now. You know, when someone violates zoning or building or anything, we have an incredibly hard time ever collecting money. So,
What they pay for when they,
Yeah, this is not out, so you fill out a permit, you submit a
Yeah.
permit, you pay.
It's the same way they get a building permit.
right, but the violation, like the violation on a building permit is very difficult to collect.
This isn't violation, this is an application. For a-
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a section of
You're thinking
violations,
about
I'm
the
sorry.
fine. You're thinking about the fine side of it.
Yeah. Because there were violations, I mean, there were fees or fines listed, and I just know from experience with other departments, they're very hard to collect, so. But, yes, the application fee.
Was fine.
So again, my question on the amendment to chapter 121 regarding the use table, and when you go down to the section of food trucks that have people permitted, I guess what I'm trying to clarify is, I think these are pretty much like, not a special permit, but you need to file a permit in order to do it. And that seems a little misleading.
So, the use table right now is, my opinion, is the board needs to decide where they want to see it. Right now, I have it permitted in all districts. If somebody wants to have a food truck at their house, and they want to have it for a special event, and they want to set it up for, like a stationary spot, or they can stay for a period of time, all of that's controlled by the local law draft. If there's places you specifically don't want them, well, then we can work that backwards. So, this was just a start point.
and I think we addressed the places that we wouldn't want them. We wouldn't, because I think if I remember, there's a phrase about not parking on public streets. I mean, we wouldn't want them parking along Main Street.
Like I said,
But that's been addressed in there.
Correct,
So I
there's
think
already
that's
some
one-
restrictions in there, setback requirements,
Right, we don't
not
want
next to
those.
driveways, intersection, you know, there are some safety-oriented restrictions that are built into the draft.
Right.
So,
And that's the only thing I could think of, and I thought you covered it.
I also think it would be a really great idea if there was a key to this, because people may be looking at this or may have Xerox of this, and if it doesn't go with GPS and whatever.
this is just a section of the use table, it has.
So this would just be part of the use table?
Correct, yeah, and
Okay.
print out the whole use table,
Okay.
I just took a section
Okay.
where I put it in the
Got it.
business use and, that's where she.
Okay.
So,
So just part of the use table which has a
Is
key.
that clear? Do you need anything else?
well, I think the next step to this, my recommendation would be that we take this and send it to our planning board. Have the planning board review it, from their perspective, get their comments, we can finalize that, and then we can introduce, and set a public hearing on the final draft. So if the board is okay with that, what I will do is I will send it to planning board attorney and request that we circulate.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking a lead on it.
Okay, so, the resolution, this is also changed mostly because I thought it was incredibly impossible to understand the transfer of funds if they were read aloud, because it's all like numbers that the things are under and prices, and it was just like too many numbers. So I thought it would be better to post it. And so now we have a consent agenda, where these things are posted in advance, but these are things that are fairly straightforward.
You skip your New York
This
State
would be your
DOT.
state DOT marker?
No, that, I didn't finish that, I'm sorry. Thank you. after my conversation with the guy from DOT, it seemed better to be done last.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. So consent agenda means that the board votes on the items that are listed. And non-consent agenda, which is the next piece, is agenda items where we read each one. So anyway, the consent agenda items are approving extension of the town of Media grant writers contract. When we set it up, it was only for 2 months because we thought we were going to test her against another person who we decided not to do. So we're just basically accepting her year contract. The second one is approving closure of Passaic Main Street for a classic car and flower event. Sharon was concerned about access to the businesses down there, and I will investigate that. And the last one is the transfer of funds, which again is pretty standard, but I think is completely useless if it's read aloud.
There is an issue on it, though, I bring that up. It says, there's a couple things on it, actually.
So, I know this process is new for the board.
Yeah.
The agenda gets sent out, there's a consent agenda and a non-consent agenda.
Right.
If there is an issue with any of these resolutions or something you have,
I
you're not
know if I'm
consent.
done with this earlier.
Okay, so what should have been done was when we made a motion to accept the agenda, at that point, we should make a motion to amend the agenda to move an item from consent to non-consent because there was an issue.
Okay.
So technically, we should have had a motion to amend the agenda to move it from consent to non-consent. Again, this is new for the board, we're still getting used to our new agenda and the process. So, so Brad, I understand you want to make a motion then to amend the agenda to take this particular item from non-consent.
Yeah, and it's really
consent
just,
to non-consent.
that's correct. And
So you should make that
I'll
motion.
make a motion to amend the consent agenda regarding the resolution for transfer of funds.
I'll second that.
So what I
Hold on,
don't,
hold on, hold on. We have a second, motion and
We have
second?
motion is second.
Yeah,
So we need to,
All in favor?
aye.
okay, so now,
Now we have to vote on it.
right, so now that will go down to the non-consent
We're not gonna cover it.
portion, we're not ready to talk about it now. So then, so,
All right, so we're going to vote, I make a motion that we accept the first two items under the consent agenda and.
so we should have the clerk read the resolutions.
Oh, you have to do it.
Consent, yeah, on the consent agenda, clerk, can you please read the resolution?
Sure. So, looking to, is there a motion to approve resolution number 56, approving the extension of the town of Media grant writer contract, and resolution number 57, authorizing the closure of the main street for a classic car show and flower event. Brad?
I'll second.
What was the date?
The date of what? The
Saturday, May 31st. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so we're going to move the transfer of funds down to the non-consent agenda, and we put it in a specific place, so we can just start with it.
I would put the bottom of the list.
Where's the bottom?
I'll put the bottom of the list and start with the first resolution.
Okay, so, I can see Nicole is ready, so do you want to take the first one, or you're not?
Yeah, we're doing 58 or 59.
The part-time hiring, part-time clerk, 8.
58. Hiring part-time clerk to video record town meeting meetings and special events, whereas the town of the meeting has a need of a part-time clerk to video record all town meetings, including town planning and zoning board meetings and special events, and whereas Matthew Ham has shown an interest in being a part-time clerk for the town of Meeting for the purpose of videoing and recording all town meetings and special events, and whereas the position of part-time clerk is considered to be a non-competitive position pursuant to the rules of the classified civil service of Dutchess County, now therefore be it resolved as follows: resolution set forth above are incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. The town board of the town meeting hereby hires Matthew Ham to the position of part-time clerk for the town of Meeting for the purpose of videoing and recording all town meetings and special events as set forth herein. Matthew Ham should be paid an annual salary of $9,000. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Councilmember Butler?
Yes.
Pam?
I have to recuse myself for obvious reasons.
And thank you.
Okay. The next one is approving the Labella contract modification. Right here. Slow down here, out of order. Okay, Labella Associates is the people who will be, who did the drawings for the sidewalk extension of Beacon Park, and New York State DOT insisted that we pay them to be on site during construction, which is, another fabulous regulation. So we need to actually pay them more because the DOT is insisting that they be there. Luckily, the construction is only supposed to be a week and a half to 2. I hope that really happens, but I will read it now. Approving Labella Associates DPC contract modification number 3 for the town of Amenia Route 44 sidewalk extension project. Whereas by resolution number 93 of 2024, adopted by the town of Amenia Town Board on August 1st, 2024, the board approved contract modification number 2 from Labella Associates in the amount of $49,700 to provide additional survey and civil engineering support required by the New York State Department of Transportation in connection with the town of Amenia Route 44 sidewalk project. And whereas New York State DOT is now requiring construction administration and full-time construction observation services, and whereas Labella has proposed contract modification number 3 to address New York State DOT's additional requirements, and whereas the town board of the town of Amenia is desirous of approving proposed contract modification number 3 from Labella dated May 8th, 2025, a copy of which is annexed here 2, and whereas this is a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and therefore not subject to review under SECRA, and whereas the professional engineering services to be provided by Labella constitute professional services which are exempt from the bidding requirements under General Municipal Law 103 and the town of Amenia's procurement policy. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1, the recitation set forth above or incorporated in this resolution is fully set forth and adopted herein. 2, the town board of the town of Amenia hereby approves contract modification number 3 from Labella in the amount of $36,800 in accordance with the proposal dated May 8th, 2025, a copy of which is annexed here 2. The town board of the town of Amenia hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute the next contract modification for Labella by and on behalf of the town of Amenia. And 4, the town board of the town of Amenia hereby authorizes payment for said engineering services to be paid from budget line number 1.054, 102.01, 10600. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Oh, did I say what the number was on that line?
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, what number was that? Resolution 59. All right. The next one is awarding contract for water quality monitoring services by HVA. Do you want to read that, please, Anna?
Right, so it is this is number 60. Awarding contract for water quality monitoring services. Whereas town of Amenia is seeking funds to create a new sewer district in the Amenia hamlet, which will be served by community wastewater treatment facility. And whereas competitive funding opportunities that can help finance this project require documentation of need, including water quality data. And whereas Housatonic Valley Association submitted a proposal to the town of Amenia in 2023 to conduct a 2-phase surface water quality monitoring study. And whereas the town board of the town of Amenia by resolution number 90 of 2023, adopted by the town board on August 17, 2023, authorized phase 1 of a surface water quality monitoring study. And whereas the town board of the town of Amenia desires to award the contract to Housatonic Valley Association in the maximum amount of $10,000 to conduct phase 2 of the study in accordance with the proposal annexed here 2. And whereas professional services or services requiring special or technical skill, training, or expertise are exempt from the bidding requirements under General Municipal Law, Section 103, and the Town of Amelia procurement policy. And whereas this is a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and therefore not subject to review under SECRA. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The recitations set forth above are all incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. The Town Board of the Town of Amelia hereby authorizes a contract with Housatonic Valley Association to conduct Phase 2 of a surface water quality monitoring study related to the planned new sewer district in the immediate hamlet in the maximum amount of $10,000 in accordance with the proposal annexed here to. Number 3, the Town Board hereby authorizes the Town Supervisor to execute any documents necessary to effectuate the purpose and intent of this resolution. Number 4, the Town Board of the Town of Amelia hereby authorizes a payment for said services to be paid from the budget line number 1.080204.01.103.00. Number 5, the Town Supervisor is hereby directed to provide a copy of the proposal and any signed documents to the Town Clerk, who shall maintain the same in her files. I make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll read the next one, Brian, because since you bumped the transfer of funds, I'm going to read it. I mean, not because you do, but because it's horrible to read. Okay, resolution number 62, hiring part-time recreation leader.
51.
61. Sure about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Hiring part-time recreation leader. Whereas the town of Amelia is seeking to fill a part-time recreation leader position, and whereas the position of part-time recreation leader is considered to be a non-competitive position, pursuant to the rules of the classified civil service of Dutchess County, and whereas the town has searched and interviewed for the position, and whereas Cassidy Howard has expressed an interest in the position, now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1, the recitations set forth above are incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. 2, the Town Board of the Town of Amelia hereby hires Cassidy Howard to the position of part-time recreation leader, commencing May 19, 2025. 3, Cassidy Howard should be paid at the hourly rate of $18 and shall work a maximum of 20 hours per week. 4, the Town Supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to file any and all documents necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution. No, that's someone else. Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, 62, Brad.
All right, as I read this, I'm going to go ahead and stop where I think there's errors in this, and I just... Right.
No, I think we could bring it up.
Yeah, so read the resolution is drafted,
Yeah,
then once it's moved and seconded, then you can make a motion.
okay, all right. Transfer of funds May 2025, whereas the town board has the authority to transfer funds when necessary or unanticipated to amend the budget, and whereas budget amendment from the general fund to increase 16204.001.055 building CD public access by $2,000 and decrease 16201.01.066 buildings PS public access by $2,000 for the recording of board meetings. Whereas the budget amendment in the general fund to increase 2260.01 public safety services by $896.87 and increase 30204.01 public safety commission services by $896.87 for DC show services for completion of affidavit. Whereas the budget amendment to increase 13104.01.040 Director of Finance accounts toward for $2,000 for AFR footnotes and increase 36204.01 safety inspection CE by $4,000 for Z3 consultant. Help with the zoning and the increase of 16704 .01.061 Central Brent Maryland Legals by $2,000 for legal ads, and decrease 19,004.01.049 special item CE contingency by $8,000. Whereas budget amendment increase for 71451.01 Summer Rec PS line by $3,000, and decrease 70201.01 Recreation Administration PS by $3,000 for lifeguards at Maplebrook. Whereas budget amendment to increase 73104.01.160 Youth Program CE, new programs by $265.54, and decrease 73204.01.160 Joint Youth Program CE, new program by $265.54. Whereas budget amendment to increase 2421.01 lease payment collected by $45,000, that's $450,097.94, and increase 2401.01.187 interest leases by $145,081.93, and increase 1989401.187 other general, increase 24, I think I missed a line here, the government support, there it is, by $59,679.87 for copier leases. Budget amendment to increase 5031.22 interfund transfer capital water by $682.77, $68,277.88, and increase 14402.22 engineer equipment and capital outlay by $682.77.88 for new water capital project. Whereas budget amendment to transfer $25,000 from the general account 200.01 to the highway garage capital project account 200.20 to pay the CPL architecture and engineering voucher for April 2025. Whereas budget amendment to increase 99509.01 interfund transfer by $25,000 and decrease 11404.01 engineering CE by $25,000 for CPL architecture engineering voucher for April 2025. Whereas budget amendment to increase 5031.20 intertransfer capital project by $25,000 and increase 14402.20 engineering CE capital project for CPL architecture and engineering vouchers for 2025. Now therefore be resolved, the town will authorize the transfer of necessary budget lines to process the transactions. I will make that motion.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
And see what I mean about that? Could anyone really follow that when it's read? No. Okay. You, at second, you get to make comments.
So it's really just, maybe it's me my understanding of this, but when you increase from one fund, you decrease another, correct?
Yeah, I wondered about that too.
There's two instances in here where it says increase and increase.
Because that comes to the final decrease, you need those two amounts to equal what you're, you know what I mean? Like if there's two of them, it's because those two amounts add up to what you're increasing to.
But where are they coming from?
It says what they're coming from.
So whereas budget amendment in general fund to increase the line number of public safety services by $896.87, and increase 30204 public safety commission by the same amount, but it doesn't, yeah, because it doesn't
We do
say,
every month when we have, there's an event over at the synagogue, and they have to, we pay for the Dutchess County Sheriffs. So what's happening is, because we have the contract with the sheriffs, not them, we get a bill from the sheriff's office, we send it to them, they send us the money. So we have to show that that money came into the account, so we're increasing the line, and then that's how we're so we increasing our general fund in the amount of what came in, the miscellaneous money that came in, And then we have to show it that we're gonna be increasing that particular line because we have an outgoing. So in part of the vouchers, you're gonna see that exact amount with Dutchess County Sheriff's. So we have an outgoing. It's just the way that how you, with the government accounting, you have to show all of your funds that come in. So that's why you see, sometimes you see increases. So if we take money into a line that normally would not have a line, there is no, if you go to the budget and there was no money that was part of that budget line and we're taking money in, we have to show it to all of our residents that we took money in.
There was a second instance here too as well, which I'm going to assume you're saying is the same thing. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Now,
Oh, right.
so we all good with
Yeah.
just a discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, that motion carries and I can carry bills.
Okay. Other matters, board?
Actually, I have a matter.
Good for you.
First of all, I want everybody to notice that we have an Luxon box mounted outside Town Hall. I spoke to Eric at the Dutchess County Mental Health Department. We will be getting a vending machine which will contain naloxone and fentanyl test strips and xylazine test strips. And all of that is free of charge. I spoke
You are going to explain what those things are?
Well, obviously the fentanyl and xylazine are test strips to test your drugs. And then naloxone is the Narcan,
Great.
okay? So it'll be going out under the alcove here where there's light and it has to be accessible 24/7. It's going to be going out here, there's electric out here, there's light out there. So that should be coming soon. Also, we are having a mental health town hall in September. Eric, and I can't remember his last name, but he's from the Department of Mental Health, said that our town executor and if everybody's on board with that, and so they're going to bring that probably in September, October. So that will be happening, and that's a really good thing, considering that we've obviously had some issues here. Also, Andrea Tucci from Cape, she sent me an email. She said she's waiting for a call back from a detective from the sheriff's office to confirm that the medication pickup location is here for the box return, the return of prescription drugs. Once she has that confirmation, then they will order and process the order for the return box to go in town hall, and she said we should have it by the end of June.
Great. Anyone else?
I have another matter with regards to board action. As I know, the email was circulated, but for action of the board, I do have to present, we do have one resignation from our highway, from our HMEO position, and that was Preston Vincent, and that is effective tomorrow, May 16th. Is the report to accept that resignation, please?
I'll make a motion to accept that.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Preston, for your years of service with the town of Windsor.
I actually got one more thing.
Sure.
I attended the community partners meeting on Tuesday, and it was a great meeting. We had, I was there, Chris from the supervisor from the town of Northeast, the mayor of Millerton was there, and of course there were other people from other organizations, Daryl from Maple Brook School. And the cooperation was amazing, and the school district, I can't remember all the facilities, but they do have a pickleball court and a tennis court at the school, which is available for public use. The track is available for public use after school hours. Maple Brook is all in for helping out in whatever they can help out in. And so the feeling of cooperation among all these people to provide services for people in both towns was great, and the cooperation between town of Northeast and the village of Millerton and the town of Armenia. It was a really positive meeting. We invite other people to come, especially since we have so much talent in this community. People have said they know we would like to do some acting classes for kids or whatever. So we invite anybody who has a special talent that would like to come and offer their services for, the town to come to our next meeting, which probably will be until the fall. But it was a very positive meeting, and it was very good.
Great. All right.
I had two things.
Go ahead,
I
Nicole.
spoke with a gentleman who actually brought up something, and I told him I would bring it up to the meeting and kind of shed some light on it. or the 44 sidewalk being extended to Beekman, he thought it was supposed to be originally going beyond that to Lake Amelia Road. And I confirmed with Megan that no, it is not, and Charlie, like, no, it's not, it's just going to be in the park. And then I had drove down there today to kind of see why not, because it got me thinking, like, oh yeah, I guess it does kind of feel incomplete, just going to Beekman Park, not having the connection from Lake Amelia to Beekman Park right on the other side. So I went and checked it out, and there's guardrails, there's a ditch there. And probably expensive to extend it that little
Could
bit
you
more.
extend it?
But he did say that, it does seem like Amelia Road is a little disconnected from the town, and that would help. But so I just wanted to let you guys know that that was a feedback from
Thank you.
reading. And the other thing is, the other question we're getting a lot of is, the music series. When is it starting? It's Mondays in July. We'll be starting, and we will, be having a rec meeting on this coming Tuesday to hopefully iron out some of the logistics so that we can then make flyers and have that out to the public. So you know what bands and what days you want to come. And hopefully it's all of them.
Nicole, would the mailer be going out like it used to, that on your refrigerators indicating when these events are?
Yeah, we have not done that. And part of the problem is the cost to the amount of events that we would have to put on the flyer, wouldn't really make sense to do right now.
But it will be
Unless you
listed on the
want-
website, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But he's talking about the mailer.
Right.
How do we get it?
I can speak to that.
Why not? Since we're going into comments on all business and.
The amount of money for postage and printing, we spent, I believe it was around $6,000 or $7,000 last year.
For the year,
And for sending the quarterly postcards out. And if you went into the post office after they were sent out and looked in the garbage bins, you would see why we're not doing it anymore, because unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be an effective way of getting information to people. We are, Nicole is saying on Facebook, we're going to we're trying to find other ways to reach people, but the website, we're hopeful that with the new website, that will be able to for people to navigate and find what they need to. But that's why, it just wasn't really working.
And we will have the LED sign, I don't know exactly when, probably maybe after the beginning of July, but in future that can be used for those sorts of announcements.
And interestingly enough, that was a conversation that was held at that partners meeting. All the towns and villages are facing that same problem of communication and trying different ways of getting information out. And it seems like no matter what you do, somebody's not getting it. So we just have to keep working at it.
Any other matters or town board comments?
Yeah, from the enhancement committee, I have a little note here indicating that they're organizing the Fountain Square and Town Hall and Library. They'll be doing the planters on Memorial Day, May 20th. It says Memorial Day is
Oh, okay.
May 26th, says. We plan to do them in the morning, 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 24th, it says here. So if anybody's interested in participating, help is always needed.
Also on May 24th is a bake sale for Indian Rock Schoolhouse and Separate Deli.
Huh. Interesting. I'm sorry, what time is that? Man. Okay, well, assuming that's all the board has to say, we'll go to public comment next. I see hands up. Let me just again reiterate, it's 3 minutes per person, and we have George Lupow, the attorney for the suit, who will be able to, at the end, try to answer some of the questions. And Philip, why don't you go ahead?
Leo,
What?
I will keep time.
Will you keep time?
What I'll try to do is not to be rude, but I'll give you like a 15-second, like,
This will be 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay? I'm Philip Sicker. I live in South Amelia Road, we live in
Use the mic so we can all hear.
Philip Sicker, South Amelia Road, where we lived for nearly 30 years. It's a little known fact that in May 2023 issue,
Excuse me,
There's a button on there?
What, is this really necessary?
Okay.
For our TV audience at home.
Oh, I wouldn't want to miss that. It's a little known fact that in its May 2023 issue, Travel and Leisure magazine named Amenia the most beautiful town in New York State. Heading listed 14 villages that included such famous names as Lake George and Skaneateles. The editors cited Amenia's antique shops and rail trail, but above all they praised, quote, an unspoiled landscape dotted with pastures, lush woodlands, and Berkshire foothills. Now, this is a fit description of a pristine stretch of South Amenia Road, where the meandering Weebatuck Creek separates cornfields from the densely forested Rattlesnake Ridge. A long abandoned gravel mine sits in this area, and on April 24th, 3 members of the Amenia Town Board settled with Kent Hollow Incorporated, permitting the company to resume mining operations 4 days a week in the immediate vicinity of historic houses and endangered species. Nearby residents now face the prospect of unendurable noise and dust clouds from bulldozers and 12-ton gravel trucks. After 8 years of principled resistance by the town board, the 3 inexperienced members have now yielded to a corporate bully that has sought to circumvent the existing zoning code by using lawsuits to enforce elected officials to recuse themselves. Kent Hollow's bid to resume mining after 40 years rests on the fraudulent contention that they have been extracting small amounts of rock for decades and should therefore be grandfathered back into full-time operation. This claim is contradicted by eyewitness testimony and aerial photographs that show virtually no activity at all. And in 2019, after a painstaking examination of the documents Kent Hollow submitted, the ZBA unanimously rejected its application. The board's misguided decision to settle raises several questions that I want now to pose to its 3 voting members. 1, why after 8 years of litigation did you feel compelled to call a hastily announced special meeting during a week when the board normally doesn't meet? Why such sudden urgency? And why did the board vote on the agreement 4 days before the same agreement went to the ZBA? This seems an odd reversal of sequence. Second, in approving the settlement, were you aware that in August 2023, New York State officially designated the area on South Amenia Road encompassing the mine as the Weebatuck Agricultural Valley Historic District? It's an impressive distinction and one completely incompatible with gravel mining. Third, how do you intend to enforce the limitations stipulated in this settlement when Kent Hollow begins extracting more rock over more hours than designated in the agreement? Kent Hollow's aggressive dishonesty in the past dealings make future violations inevitable. Finally, have you considered the long-term implications of carving out an exemption for Kent Hollow? The settlement notes the town is making an exception, but do you really imagine such language will deter other wealthy, coercive corporate entities? In sacrificing its zoning code by bowing to Kent Hollow, the board effectively announces that others can gain similar concessions through lawsuits and intimidation. It would be naive not to foresee this. I'm just about done. Defending zoning laws is expensive, I know, but not doing so would be far costlier, not only for the environment, but for Amenia's integrity and reputation. Unless the board's vote can be reversed, I fear we will soon look back sadly on this decision and perhaps recall a line from that old Joni Mitchell song, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone."
Back of the room.
Hi, I'm Diane Zoller. I live on South Amenia Road on a property abutting the gravel mine. I want to speak about the new designation by the State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation that Phil mentioned, which has made our area officially the Weebatuck Agricultural Valley Historic District. This was almost entirely the work of the incredibly determined Sharon Kroger. Thank you so much, Sharon. In August 2023, the state office sent a letter announcing this to Victoria Karate, then the town board supervisor, but I was unable to find out if she shared it with any of the current board members. If you were aware of the designation, it makes your decision to allow mining in this historic district even more mystifying and disturbing. If you're not aware, I want to let you know that historic districts like ours are protected by the State Historic Preservation Act. The act specifies, and I quote, that state agencies avoid or mitigate adverse impacts to historic properties. The state agency that has to consider those adverse impacts is the Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC. The settlement that the town board agreed to on the 24th must be approved by the DEC to go forward, and the DEC will now have to engage with the State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to ensure that the mine does not have an adverse impact on the historic district. I've written to the state office, and they are now aware of the situation. It's important that we also make the DEC aware of the fact that the area is now a state historic district. I've also contacted the Housatonic Valley Association about the mine. The HVA oversees the Housatonic watershed, which includes the Weavertuck Creek on which the mine would be operating. Their aim is to ensure clean waterways and to protect endangered plant and animal life, and I hope that they will be eager to be involved. Once the town board notifies the DEC about the new mining application, the DEC will allow public comment for 30 days before deciding whether to give Kent Hollow a permit to mine. It's vital to make the DEC aware of our concerns, so we will let you all know when this is happening. Someone pointed out to me that people might see this as a NIMBY issue. My first reaction was, well, yeah, it's happening right in my own backyard. But you know, it is also your backyard. It's the Weavertuck Creek that flows from Connecticut through Amenia to where it merges with the 10-Mile River. It's Rattlesnake Ridge that you can see from almost any place in town. It's the gardens where we grow our food and the pastures where livestock graze and where we can watch deer and wild turkeys almost any evening of the year. Let me ask each of the board members who voted to accept this settlement directly. Would you be so quick to approve it if this mine were across the street from you? Nicole, you have 6 young children. Can you honestly say you feel safe letting them play outside, knowing what could be in the air and water, and knowing that 10 Mueller gravel trucks would be passing by numerous times a day? Brad, you're just welcome to new grandson. Would you want his first steps to be on contaminated soil? His first breaths filled with dust and chemicals? And Roseanne, why did you go back on your word to this community? You promised transparency. You promised to put our families first. Where is that promise now? You are Amenia's town board. So I'm not saying not in my backyard here. I'm saying not in Amenia's backyard. I'm saying not in this historic district that is also a pristine home for endangered plants and animals. I'm saying not in our backyard.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, yes.
Hello, my name is Dr. Shannon Roback. I am an Amenia resident. I have a PhD in environmental science and engineering. I'm also the science director at Riverkeeper, which is an environmental organization that oversees the protection of the Hudson River and the New York City drinking water watershed. I'm also here to talk about the mine and the threat to the drinking water quality of every resident in Amenia. So for those of you that don't know how sand and gravel mining works, is the sand and gravel is removed from the Weavertuck Creek, which is stocked with trout. It will destroy the creek in terms of habitat for trout. So any of our residents that enjoy fishing in the creek, including those that go to Troutbeck to do that, and local residents will highly likely no longer be able to conduct that activity because the water quality will be degraded due to the mining operations and the habitat will be destroyed for fish in the creek. So maybe you're not a fisherman, maybe you don't care about fish. The other thing that we always have to remember living in Amenia is that we are living in a place with a very high water table and we are all relying on groundwater. So what happens during sand and gravel mining is you end up with contamination of heavy metals. Because our water table is so high, it is highly likely that we will contaminate the groundwater in Amenia that serves people on their private wells and also the public water supply. So groundwater exists underground. Just because the heavy metals go in at the site of the mining operation doesn't mean that they will stay in the groundwater just below the mining operation. They will migrate to the groundwater through the entire town, putting every resident, whether they're on the public well or on a private well now, at risk for exposure to heavy metals, which cause reproductive health effects, as well as cancer. This is a well-documented environmental consequence of sand and gravel mining. So I would highly encourage the board to consider their support of a project that is going to put
at risk the health of all of the residents of Amenia, especially children, the elderly, and people who are immunocompromised will be more susceptible to the harmful effects of those heavy metals. So I think we need to be really clear about what the environmental and public health effects of this mine will be, not just for the residents who are nearby, but for the entire community. And I would strongly recommend that the board can reconsider their support for this very dangerous project.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sure. No, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Rosenberg. I live on Clark Hill Road in a house that my wife and I built 33 years ago. If you read the letter that Philip and Diane sent to the Millerton News, it adequately expresses my disappointment and anger over this decision made by 3 members of the town board regarding Kent Hollow. Since 2017, the Zoning Board of Appeals and the town board stood fast in their rejection of Kent Hollow's attempt to reopen mining operations on South Amenia Road for a number of very legitimate reasons. I have served on both the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Town Planning Board, and I have some reasonable understanding of how these things work. In addition, to announce a special meeting with less than 24-hour notice to take a vote on such a critical issue is really beyond my understanding. 2 of those voting came into the Wasaic panel asking us to re-elect them as representatives of the interests of the residents in the area, to go against the rulings that have been in effect for the past 8 years, which will potentially threaten wildlife and the health of our air and water, especially the manner in which it was done, is rather incredulous to me. In addition, as a member of the Wasaic Fire Company, I have responded to numerous accidents on South Amenia Road and Leesville Road, including 2 fatalities. The addition of more heavy truck traffic will only increase the odds of more people getting injured or worse. I would urge the board to reconsider their actions so as to make it unnecessary for area residents to take whatever legal actions they may think prudent. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Alice Storm, and I live at 330 South Amenia Road. I chose this location 2 years ago because of its pastoral and resplendent natural beauty. I am a photographer, and I'm writing a book about the beauty of South Amenia Road. I am shocked to now learn that this peaceful existence will be interrupted with devastation from mining. This paradise will have maddening noise from monster trucks, prolific dust, and an atmosphere of anxiety and uncertainty. I say uncertainty because I have asthma and will almost certainly be adversely affected by this influx of dust and dirt. I tell you, I already have nightmares about these trucks because I now have a new dotted line in front of my house where cars are speeding unbelievably. So with the influx of the trucks right across from me and the speeding, it's just an accident's waiting to happen. So I've done some research about what might occur, and I'm bringing up an issue that maybe the board never looked at. What's going to happen to our properties? I've already put a lot of money into my property. So on data that I looked in a lot, properties with within half a mile of the mine are going to lose 20% of their value. That's going to happen for sure. 1 mile, 14.5%. 2 miles, 8.9%. 3 miles, 4.9%. Some studies suggest that discounts can range from 7.5% up to 36%. These losses are attributed to nuisances such as dust, noise, increased traffic, and perceived risk, which reduce our area's quality of life and desirability. I am very worried about this, and I think that the mining will affect all of us negatively, health-wise and property-wise. Our properties are our most cherished possession. Why is this happening? There's no reason for this. I wouldn't have moved here if this was going to happen. So I'm asking the board to reconsider. This is a terrible thing that's going to happen to our community. And as neighbors, we're going to do something about it, I can assure you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sharon, sorry. Next, I swear.
Sharon Kroger here. I'm speaking on behalf of the homeowners in the Weebutuck Agricultural Valley section of Amelia where I live. On May 9th, there was a roadway crash in Leedsville Hamlet where a speeding pickup truck could not make the large turn and went down an embankment into the forest along the river. A police car with lights flashing remained parked there most of the day to slow the traffic while various parts of the truck were removed. Last summer, in Amelia Union Hamlet, a motorcycle rider passed the busy food distribution activities at St. Thomas's Church and then gunned his motor, raced around the blind corner and up the hill to crash headlong into the family car of Damian Gutierrez, a former member of this board, who was turning out of his driveway. Several years before this, there was a collision in the Kent Road intersection in the South Amelia Hamlet. Now, there are two very different viewpoints operating here about how to look at this piece of territory. They're really two totally different ideas, and I think it's worthwhile for us to just sort of review that for a minute. Some would view these local country roads between hamlets as though they were mere highways. And sadly, that includes Dutchess County Public Works, which does the road maintenance and doesn't recognize a populated pedestrian settlement such as an early 18th century hamlet. Both Leedsville and Amelia Union roads uniquely cut through farms, and many of the early homes are very close to the road. Homeowners and historians, on the other hand, see these antique populated pedestrian hamlets and active, well-used farmlands in between a rare 18th century configuration that should not be treated as though it was merely open highway. Dutchess County continuously marks these roads with legal white signs speed of 40 miles an hour. And whenever there is an accident, a new yellow sign gets added with a lower speed but without change, that recognizes the actual populated settlement as an entity in itself. And the 40 mile an hour signs remain, so as to really confuse the people who are seeing signs. If you slowly drive, you're going to see a group of signs going in and out of Amelia Union that really confuse you.
Did you hear the warning, Sharon?
I'm sorry?
Ian was very quiet, but 15-second warning.
Oh, all right. I'd like the board, regardless of whether or not there are more lawsuits or a group of lawsuits, to consider working with the county to get them to actually recognize what's happening with this nationwide and statewide recognition of this historic district. And that would be helpful in itself, regardless of the other lawsuits that may or may not take place.
Thank you.
I guess that's enough for now.
Thanks, Sharon.
My name is George DeVoe. My wife and I live in Union Union, have for close to 30 years. About a mile and 2/3 from the Kent Hollow property. We have always preferred farms over gravel mines, especially now in this world where it's so hard for the farmer to make any money from hay or corn or cattle or eggs, where the produce of the farms is hard to keep on the shelves at prices that are affordable and that can also sustain the farmer.
By profession, I am a real estate appraiser who places values only on land, mostly larger parcels that can be saved against development or mining, to help with preserving the farm fields and woods, mostly through conservation easements or restrictions in the name of various land trusts. Where it really comes to home is when it's our homes that are threatened by commercial mining operations running counter to the zoning code. If the gravel mine starts operation, I see the immediate lowering of values of the properties where we live. Exactly what you were saying, except I need to hire you to work with you. You've got some better figures than I. In the last 6 months, I saw some very healthy land sales in the immediate and greater neighborhood of the Kent Hollow Inc. property. One right next door to it, just last month, of over 300 acres. But this might no longer be the case. What is the hit that will have to be applied? A diminution of 10%, 20% or more? In the past week, I have already been called to consult about the gravel mining, and I know of 2 properties where the owners are thinking of cutting and running, preferring to take the loss and not to have to contemplate the coming years of noise, dust in the air, and yet more gravel trucks on the country roads. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I haven't seen you in like 20 years. It's very weird.
It's to you.
Mark?
Thank you. My name is Mark Doyle. I live in South Armenia Road, across from the Kent Hollow gravel mining operation, the prospective operation with my wife Vicky. This decision of yours in general doesn't just affect Armenia, it affects the whole state. There's this issue of grandfathering what was an unpermitted mine in order that they now are eligible to receive a full mining permit is the glory of all miners in New York State. So we will see considerable ramifications from that. So we do have a couple of things that I would really be interested in hearing your opinion on, because this decision was taken without any public discourse. The zoning, they've required that the zoning be changed to include them in the soil mining overlay. Zoning cannot be changed without a public process. So let's see how that goes. The other thing is that they are currently receiving a very generous, thanks to all of us taxpayers, ag assessment. Their property assessment is reduced by $640,000. This is last year's. I haven't, the new tables are not up for this year, so it's probably more. But the concept of ag assessment is that in return for keeping the land in agricultural production, because it's a policy of New York State to keep valuable agricultural land in production perpetually, in return for that agreement, farmers can receive an ag assessment, which lowers their property taxes. It makes sense. Cows don't go to school, that sort of thing. So, on the other hand, we have these people who are asking for a large mining permit for the whole area. Mining and farming, preservation of agricultural soils is completely incompatible. So, the very first thing we should do is deny their agricultural assessment. So, I think there are several more, but leave it right there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Right here.
I'm Joseph. I have lived in Armenia, Margaret Road, for 36 years. I understand the desire to solve this problem. It's been a problem for a long time. We've been here before many times. But I don't understand why you'd want to create a problem with a solution. The solution does not bring an end to this. It only has provoked the whole thing. I, too, hear NIMBY, all the time, not in my backyard. First of all, it's not in my backyard, but of course there will be issues that will be in my backyard. But I like to look at this town, which I love, and I've been here, most of my life, that it's really NIMOT, not in my open town. We've always been pretty open, we've been, no matter what, who was the town board, we came, we talked, we got through the problems. This manner that this all came down, you really got to ask yourself, let's think about this. How did this happen? And again, I totally understand the desire to get rid of the problem and to come up with a solution. But you've got to find a solution that will not only address some of these issues, but just the general issue of a sticky wicket in a town, a really bad problem that's been here for a long time. We've got to come up with a way that we can come up with a solution that doesn't cause further problems. Gravel is a natural resource in this area. It's in New York State. Farmers for years, for centuries, whenever they needed a couple of bucks to make the mortgage, they would usually have some little spot on their land where they had gravel. They would sell it off. That was a common practice, but that benefited the farmer. That kept him in seed and hay, etc. We're talking about gravel that I doubt very little of it is going to be used in the town of Armenia. And I can also tell you that I doubt highly, I find it quite ironic that this company names themselves Kent, because the town of Kent, for that matter, anywhere in Connecticut, would not put up with this. And, I think they may have even done that with a little bit of a nod. But gravel is a natural resource. We don't see it as much at the bottom of a creek, but if you come into town and really throughout the town, most of the rolling, beautiful moraine hills that we see here as a result of glaciation are the creator of gravel. And it is as much a natural resource as a beautiful lake or a mountain or a river, and we have to look at that. And
Ian is very quiet.
I heard he's not that far away. But at any rate, I urge you to give a second thought to this. It really is a very complex issue that deserves a more complex solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, one more, I'm sorry.
Really short. I'm Ben Sicker. I've lived on South Menia Road most of my life. I grew up there. I live there now. And it's been a huge part of who I am. I'm 33. Hilariously, I want to retire someday to that exact area. I want to be like that grandpa in Grapes of Wrath who won't leave even when the dust bowls come in. But honestly, all I can say is I consider this kind of bizarre, clandestine vote that occurred on the Kent Hollow matter to be a complete betrayal of not just my street, but my neighborhood, my community, my town.
Thank you.
Okay, so also, I do have two comments that came in by email. We received a comment from Andy Durbridge. He's unable to be here this evening. I understand why this small group of representatives has decided to take this decision, and that this case has taken years of incurred financial costs. There needs to be a better understanding of this and what the decision means. Firstly, the case involving Kent Hollow is primarily the cost burden to the taxpayers because of the high legal fees we taxpayers have to pay. But let me be clear here, the cost burden is entirely due to the non-resident bully who chooses to exert his power and wealth to force our small town into the prolonged costly burden, whereas he's defending the case. The clear bad player here is Kent Hollow, who is causing the problem. If this was just a schooling set, all visitors would be telling us to stand up to the bully. In my opinion, the proposal is not a representative of the interests of the residents, but more importantly sets the terrible precedent of the future of decisions of the media. This proposed agreement clearly presents the carved-out deal to hand the applicant an explanation of our zoning laws while serving absolutely no public interest whatsoever. Cat Hollow is not seeking to create a community service or to benefit our town. In fact, by far the opposite, it will have a negative effect on many aspects. An important factor, and this is the history of Cat Hollow site, it uses how long the non-resident owner has constantly tried to use the property as he thinks while disregarding the zoning and the use laws. All this over many years of constantly going his way of his goals in contradiction of the local laws. Laws which are reviewed and updated with a full public due process in about 2007, where Cat Hollow contributed no input whatsoever to the process. Yet years later, they determined that they want a difference in zoning that use that clearly determined in the law. At first, the town took action to defend the correct position. In the course of action, lawyered up and responded by levying many legal actions as they wanted against the elected and the appointed members of the town committees and government, solely trying to have these people removed from their roles and impose a heavy financial threats to the hardworking, well-meaning, serving residents. All part of their bullying tactic, targeting the public servants of the media. When a board member of the town board or the ZBA votes or make statements that appear to be unfavorable to Cat Hollow, they simply noted those names and then pursued lawsuits to personally charge and penalize those serving residents by having them removed from the positions. They did this to intimidate the decision makers and try to affect significant numbers of voting representatives in this case. There is no doubt that this case has dragged on a long time from the form of another, but the proposed settlement to be agreed on now should not be about signers of what they say, and it should be moved on. It is about how they set bad standards for future decisions and why it will open the door for anyone with enough money and adopting the attitude that they will cause to get what they want. Even when the laws clearly state something is not permitted, this is simply the law to all laws and zoning and sets a bad message, and even more bad applicants with bad plans. And it sets the paper and laws that are written on total useless and to have those that have enough money. At this time, further review is needed because accepting this current proposal written could be seriously a wrong decision. Lastly, in summary, what Cat Hollow is attempting to do will require the approval of mining New York State DEC and an application review. That should not be excused at this time by the town board to not uphold its zoning laws. If the settlement is agreed, the town is essentially deciding not to defend its current zoning, the terms of the current comprehensive plan, and notably registration of the area of the site, including the National Register of the Historic Places and other important factors, along with not defending many environmental and quality of life standards. I do not support the settlement along with many others. Furthermore, in its entire process, the residents and serving members of our local administration have been bullied into silence and inaction by the Cat Hollow legal attacks, which have diminished our local governance and likely made it even harder to recruit volunteers for public service. I do not see a single reason to agree with the proposed outcome for this and is asking for it to be rethought. Second comment I received is from Sarah Wallace, who is a local yoga studio owner. Her primary focus is on mental health and well-being and our community-minded spirit. I read about the proposed Cat Hollow mine in the news. I'm not an expert on mining or local policy and generally do not get involved in politics at any level. I feel compelled to share the perspective rooted in wellness and respect for natural surroundings. Yoga teaches us that our health is deeply connected to the environment around us. Clean air, pure water, and a natural habitat are essential not just for our physical bodies, but for our mental and emotional well-being. We do not have to look far to see the communities across our state already experiencing the effects of the environmental changes, including altered weather patterns and impacts on the local ecosystems. Large-scale industrial activities have a potential to disturb land, water, and air quality, which can turn affect the health of everyone living nearby and our community at large. From a holistic perspective, it is important to consider long-term impacts on our community's health and the natural resources we all depend on. Protecting open space and maintaining healthy natural habitats supports not only wildlife, but also the quality of life for our residents now and our future generations. I encourage our town leaders to weigh these factors carefully and to seek the input of the diverse range of the community members and professional experts. And again, that is Sarah Wallace, our yoga instructor. those are the only two comments I received.
And George, do you want to reply or give some comment on any of this?
Certainly.
I mean, I don't want to throw you under the bus, I mean, I just wanted you to have the opportunity.
No, I think,
You have to go to the podium.
so I think this is a broad and diverse selection of views that you've heard. I think many of you probably find much to agree with that as far as the overall situation. But one of the most important points is you're not approving it, a mining activity. What you're doing is accepting the court's determination that there is a non-conforming use and that the record establishes that. And I'm very familiar with this record. I'm very familiar with the points that have been made in this conversation about the nature of the activities that are taking place on the site over a period of time. I do want to say that we've heard from two courts now as to their view of the record, and they find points of that they give some credence to. One is, this property was bought and activity started on the site prior to the adoption of zoning. So an activity that exists before the adoption of zoning is got non-conforming status. To the point that was made that you're creating a precedent, I think that's only if people have bought property in 1972 and conducted activities there. Whether those activities are, there was a lot of discussion during the ZBA proceeding about the nature of those activities. In the court's determination, which is what you accepted, you didn't agree necessarily, you didn't endorse it, but you accepted what the court is telling you. And that's the result of two courts, the federal court and the state court, which have both expressed the view that the settlement would be in the town's interest because of the nature of the activities, because of the various claims that are being made, and because of the evidence in the record. So the town was exposed, and insurance counsel has advised you that there was serious concern about the nature of the damages claims and the constitutional claims that were being made in the federal process. I didn't represent you in that, the town had a separate counsel, but I did appear in court with insurance counsel and two members of the board to hear Judge Seibel, and I think Judge Seibel was, again, very encouraging of the town continuing or renewing its settlement discussions with the applicant. So all of this process is not a conclusion. It is a determination that Ken Hollow has the status of non-conforming use, and now they have to go to DC, and that is the venue for, had you zoned them into the SML, there would be 2 permits required. With the non-conforming use, it's allowed to continue pursuant to New York law. And New York law is very tolerant of the circumstances of mining activities. It allows a broad range of endeavor, and it recognizes that a mine is not just what they are doing today, but it's a resource that they use over time. And to the point of what's going to happen here, I do want to suggest, I think there's still a copy of the 2016 application upstairs. It would be illuminating because this is not an activity that's going to take place on the entire property all at one time. It is something that takes place over a period of 25 years. It is conducted in phases. The phases are reclaimed before the next phase. The active area of mining may be 2 to 5 acres. So there is something that I think this conversation would be illuminated by people who had the opportunity to look at the application or the new application when it's made. Because as I think a couple of people pointed out, DC does have a public process. They do provide notice and opportunity for comment. The town is certainly not precluded from commenting on issues that were not before the ZBA, which did not really undertake secret review. So members of the public and interested members of boards do have the opportunity to participate in matters that have not been considered already. But the point of all this is, it is the right place to go. DC has the obligation, as someone pointed out, they have the obligation to take into account the historic district. I know that was discussed and raised during the ZBA proceeding. And at that point, I told the public and the members of the board, this is not a secret review that you're conducting, it's a review to determine if there's enough conforming use. But DC has that obligation, and that would be brought to their attention. And those impacts have to be considered. So there's going to be ample opportunity for the members of the public who, I'm not disputing the nature of their concerns. I think they're valid and they should bring them to the attention of DEC. And again, you're not permitting the mine, you are simply, well, you're not simply, you're accepting a stipulation of settlement, accepting the court's determination. Just looking to see if there's anything I can't do justice to the process that was followed over the 4 years of settlement discussions. That was in response again to the court's guidance and encouragement that there was an effort to determine whether the activities could be constrained in some way. And I would point out the original application was for indicated that it could be up to 55,000 yards a year mine. The board did work with the applicant to bring that down to a maximum of 24,000 yards a year, which is reducing more than half. And it's not a carryover, it's all that can be done in 1 year. The nature of mining activities is in response to the general economic situation. It ebbs and flows. And some years, as I think was noted during the CBA hearings, some years it seems like there's nothing there. They were taking material out according to provided receipts, but receipts of acknowledgements, letters of acknowledgement. We took out X amount this year and specified dates. In some cases, those dates would be substantiated by other information, like truck records. In some cases, they were just letters from the applicant. But there were a number of comments that there was no activity during some of those periods, and yet there was. So, you know, it's a difficult situation for the zoning board. I think ultimately their conclusion, in my opinion, was correct. But I also recognize I'm not a judge. And based on my experience, and I think Ian may share this view, there's some element of chance that comes into play when the court takes up a record that the zoning board has looked at, and the court may find things in it, which it accords greater weight and deference, and may come to a different conclusion. And with regard to this particular record, I can tell you, Judge Seibel had expressed the view that there were a number of instances in which a town official, code enforcement officer, or the supervisor in a couple of cases had signed off on an application that it was a non-conforming use. And it was clearly a mining permit. I mean, someone said they never had a permit, but between 1977 and 1989, they were issued DEC permits. The DEC permits would mine the entire 82 acres, and it was again being done in that kind of phased approach, so that there would only actually have been 2 to 3 acres of mining activity per year. And ultimately, they abandoned or relinquished the last permit they had because they felt it was not cost effective, but then they also continued their own activities, taking material out. And I thought and still think there is a distinction between mining activities and excavation. But from DEC standpoint, whether it's for you, your own use, or whether you're selling it, you need a mining permit. If you go above a threshold, and they determined after 1989 they did not need that permit. But that does not mean they were not conducting activities there, and I think there was a lot of, there was evidence to suggest they did at various points do things. So I don't know if that's not solving the broad concerns, but what I'm really attempting to do is explain to the public how we got there. And the last point I want to make is, during this time, there had been 8 members of the board. You folks that participated in the last round of settlement discussions are not the people who started this, but the general conclusion and guidance from the board in response to the court's direction was that a settlement would be in the town's interest. Doesn't solve everything, but reduce the total amount of material, reduce the period of time that the material would be taken, it reduced the days of operation, it reduced the hours of operation during the school year, and it ensures that there will be no material, no activities taking place at night. So there were a lot of concessions that Ken Hull ultimately made in order to move this forward.
I want to thank George because he's sort of stuck with this for what, 80 years, maybe only 10 or 12.
Like the other George here, you started out a long time ago and then you wound up here. Takes a while.
Anyway, he has worked very hard to try to deal with this. I was the only person in this room who was in that room. I was on the zoning board at the time, and I'm really furious about that whole experience, but I'm sort of cut out of this situation in terms of making a decision. So I hear what all of you said, and I think we all heard what you said, and hopefully it sounds like there will be another process in terms of doing the DEC coming up. So, thank you. Okay.
First of all, thank you very much for defending the town.
No.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Okay, so I think we're at the end. I'm going to propose that we adjourn the meeting. Of course. Yes. Goes without saying.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any